Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and since 2010, I have interviewed hundreds upon hundreds of songwriters about the writing process. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So I've always been interested in treating songwriters the same way that we treat poets and traditional prose writers, as writers, plain and simple. There is no talk of how bands get their name, favorite tour stories, favorite foods, band drama, or anything else. This is an intelligent conversation about the writing process between two writers as we go deep, deep, deep into the writing process. That's it, nothing else. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, two very, very, very dear friends of mine. I'm not sure you can even call this an interview as much as it is a conversation. Elena Moore and Pat Riley of Tennis. I've known them for many years, and this is actually the third time having them on the pod. I've had Elena on twice. This is the first time I've had Pat on, so the two of them together is a real treat. We will get to that in a minute. And if you are a Tennis fan, or even if you're not familiar with the band, the intro and outro music to the pod. I've got some new music I've only had on for about a month or two. The intro and outro music to the pod is from a Tennis song called Need Your Love, which is one of my favorite Tennis songs. I have so many of them. If you're wondering, wow, that's a cool intro. Where is that song? Where is that music from? And it's a Tennis song. So let's address this right now because there were a lot of very confusing headlines when this first came out. The band is going on indefinite hiatus. Their relationship is not. They are two separate things, and there were a lot of confusing headlines when this first came out. And I even sent a couple to Elena because the way that some of the music publications had put this out, it was, oh, they are breaking up. They are doing wonderfully. It's the band that's going on indefinite hiatus. So let's make that very clear. They have so many ideas. It's certainly not that, wow, we're done being creative. I think it's almost that they have so many ideas. They are so creative that they have so many things they want to pursue. Their latest album is called Face Down in the Garden. And of course I'm biased here. It's a fantastic album. And one of the things that I enjoyed it because I've talked to Elena twice, but never, and I've talked to them, socially many times. And so we've had these conversations a lot, in private, but talking to the two of them together about their process, one of the things you will hear is that there are a few things that they approach from a completely different perspective. But what I love about that is that they're able to find this meeting in the middle that makes it work so well. I think not all people could be like that. That if you're trying to do something, but you're approaching something from two different perspectives, that can cause tension. And while that may be the case in the studio, I'm not sure. They don't do everything identically, but the brilliance in that is that they're able to find that middle and work well together on that. They do a lot of things. I think they're in sync on a lot of things, but there are a few things, as you'll hear, that they are not on. I also love Elena's discussion of how cleaning gives her inspires her creatively. And stay till the end for a discussion about books. Elena and I text all the time book recommendations. I'll finish a book, and first thing I do is I'll text her what I've read, and when she finishes a book, she texts me what she has read, and we have read many books. I've read many books she's recommended, and vice versa. So stay tuned for that as well. They are both, as you'll hear, and you may know this if you know anything about the band, constant readers, and so I loved talking books with them. So again, the band, I am excited. I'm sad that the band is going on indefinite hiatus, but they are not going on hiatus creatively. They're just going to explore new things. The latest album is called Face Down in the Garden. Again, it is fantastic from this biased point of view. Here are my two dear friends, Elena Moore and Pat Riley of Tennis. Well, listen, so the first question is, with the album, the new album, let's generally talk about where was the bulk of the writing done for this? And so it's kind of a two-part question. Where was the bulk of the writing done? And how many of these songs were kind of built as collections of fragments of things rather than a fully formed piece, if that makes sense?
This is going to be a fun conversation because as a friend, Ben, you already know a lot of this, but to everyone who's listening to this, they won't know. So we'll probably rehash
There's
some
just going to
things
be a
for
lot
you.
of venting.
Yeah, but I think Pat, maybe this is like a two-parter. So
Yeah.
for first, we went on another writing sabbatical, which in the Sea of Cortez on our sailboat, which would be the third time we've done this
And
trip.
there's like one location in particular where we've written like in our minds all of our best material. So we're like, oh, we're going to go right back to that spot and we're going to write more of our best material.
Yeah, we wrote Runner there, Matrimony there. There's a bunch of Fields of Blue, a bunch of songs we really love that we wrote in this one cove in the middle of nowhere in the Sea of Cortez. So anyway, we have been now calling this writing sabbatical / sailing trip doomed or cursed because every calamity, large and small, that could befall us happened to the point where 3 full months went by achieving literally nothing. Patrick didn't even touch his guitar for 5 minutes.
I almost had an engine fall on me. Like there's just like there's so many things that were occupying our time and displacing music.
Yeah. And, just bullet points. Yeah. Like we had engine failure, terrible weather. I got a chronic illness. We got robbed by pirates. That was really distressing and kind of threw us off.
Pirates in a loose term. It was like some high schoolers. I guess maybe not a loose term. I guess technically it's piracy.
When you're being robbed at sea, that's pirating.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's call it what it is.
But they were not armed, but they outnumbered us and were very aggressive about trying to get money or fuel from us. But anyway, we got away, but it was really kind of like changed the tone of the trip for us. We no longer felt comfortable because the night that this happened, we were in a secluded anchorage, which that's the whole goal. But from then on, we didn't want to be alone in a secluded anchorage. We didn't feel safe anymore.
Yeah, and there's like normally that's like a supernatural side of music for us where we're in this like crazy nature world where we're feeling, I don't know, just like in touch with
having no consciousness.
Yeah, you're right. And no internet, no phone, and like just being like completely attuned to music and our surroundings.
Yeah. And consciousness, I mean like the other. There's no one to witness you. And that's when we feel the most free with our ideas.
Yeah, and then that, obviously didn't happen.
Yeah, that didn't work out. So we ended up writing everything in a really rushed for time at home, at our house, at our home studio. And by then, we had like run out the clock several months on what was supposed to be a really long runway for writing the album. And we ended up feeling really under the gun for the last couple of months.
But this is our most time-consuming record we've ever made, even though it's only 9 songs. It's took us forever to make.
So I'm interested in that ritual part of it because like I feel the same way. There are certain places that I tend to be more effective. The downside to that is that if I'm not in those places, it's almost like an excuse. Well, I'm not in that chair, I'm not in that room, so I probably can't get stuff done here. So when you go to that place where you feel like this is where it's going to happen, and then it doesn't, and you go somewhere else, is there that sense of, do you have a loss of confidence? Like, what was it like to feel like we're not in that place where we thought it was all going to happen?
Well, also, I think normally we would have come back with some more like nuggets of, song ideas that we could build off of. And it felt like we had like one really, really cool idea that we were kind of building off of. And I think for us, that was kind of the hardest part, is that the momentum just wasn't there.
Yeah, when we went on the writing sabbatical to the Sea of Cortez, we already had in unfinished form at the Wedding and 12 Blown Tires. Those songs already existed. And we felt like those were kind of the twin pillars of the album that were going to kind of dictate how we fleshed everything else out. But yeah, it was really, I know what you're saying. And I do think it is an excuse when you're like out of your element or whatever. But normally we're very disciplined and very good at, we always call it like imposing our will and just be like, if we carved out this time to write, we will make it happen no matter what, even if it's not the vibe we like. This was the first time we've ever not been able to do that, where actually like life was kind of crumbling around us and writing had to take a back seat, which was not normal for us.
But also the very fact that this is, as you know, this is our last album for a very long time. Like, I'm sure we'll make music again, but we set out to make this album knowing it was going to be the last thing we did for, an extremely long time.
And especially as like tennis in this way, because I feel like we were starting to feel like, well, I guess the thing we kept saying is we feel like we've said everything we want to say within the constraints of this musical
project
endeavor. Yeah. Because, we've been able to take a lot of risks, but I feel like people expect somewhat of a certain thing for us. And yeah, I think we were just starting to feel like we've done everything we wanted to do.
Yeah. And so these last songs were like, they needed to truly pass like a test for us of like, the highest quality standards possible, knowing that this was going to be, the final impression of our band.
Yeah.
Pat, I'm going to ask you a very specific question about your process because when I talk to people who play guitar and ask them when they're kind of playing, this is going to be so in the weeds, but I love these kind of to those particular levels. So are you sitting? Are you walking around or are you standing?
It's not fixed. I would say it's like a mixture of all three. But it's also like guitar is a weird thing for me. Like when we're writing an album, I will commit to like this, for lack of a better word, like noodle session where I'm just like not thinking. I'm actively trying to shut off my brain and I'm just letting my hands just have fun and just go where they want to go. And then if I have a reaction to something, then I will, chase it and try and see where it goes. But I'm actually more interested in using it to fish out ideas for like drum parts or bass parts. So I actually don't use it in the like songwriter sense, I guess. I use it in like as like almost like a brainstorming palette.
We call him Riff a Day Riley.
Yeah, because I really do. I try and record one riff a day that at least like makes my ear perk up or like it has some emotional quality to it that I find interesting. But yeah, I'm not trying to like write a song, so to speak. And rarely has that ever. There's like I can count on one hand how many times it's happened where I like write a guitar part that finishes itself by the end of the day.
Yeah, you're just mining for parts.
Exactly.
So is it important to create every day in some fashion, no matter how bad it is? And if you don't do that, some people feel comfortable with that. Like, hey, it's not happening. Others feel anxious. So both of you, where do you stand on that?
I'm firmly on the, you have to just do it. Like it's your job. Like not too many people get to do this for a living. And if we just did it like quote unquote when we wanted to or when it felt good or when you felt inspired or whatever, like that's just a luxury that I don't know we haven't. I mean, maybe back in the day when you used to get those like $500,000 recording advances and you had 6 years to make a record, but like that's just not the job anymore. And I think pushing through writer's block and pushing through the hardship of the roadblocks that come with any musical intention, like that to me is where my best work comes out. And I don't know if that's the same for Elena.
Okay, this is a great example of how our marriage has influenced me. So I feel like you maybe already know this, but yeah, I am way more of a like, It's loosely in the background all the time. It's something I'm considering, but I don't like clock in and out like I'm in a factory cranking out riffs or songs or whatever. I prefer to wait until I get seized by an idea and I can really sense it. Like I have a sense that turns on and I'm like, an idea is coming. Clear the schedule, clear everything, and just sit with it until I get to the other side of whatever it is. And I'm a good steward of that. And I do think I have my best ideas that way. But you can't be in a working relationship where your partner is like literally clocking in, like he puts his hard hat on every day and like goes to work, like getting songs. And I'm just like going on a walk or like cooking or folding laundry while I watch TV, like waiting for an idea to come. I can't. It's just like the work ethic felt too imbalanced.
But I feel like what ends up happening though is like whenever because I usually will work alone for, half the day. And then I'll show you what I've come up with. And then you usually have a really good way of like taking that and like, punching it up or whatever with your fresh ears. Whereas my exhausted
true.
ears they can't tell if what I did was cool or not.
That is true. But I'm saying I've abandoned my old way of working. I just work every day now. Just like we just go into the studio every day. We often will split off to work more effectively, but I work every day now. When we're on making a record, I can't go as many hours as Pat. I feel like some of that has to do with the lyrics side. It's like my brain, I feel it just turning into oatmeal and there's nothing in there anymore and I just have to stop. Whereas I feel like you can go longer if you're like programming drums.
Yeah, but for me, the oatmeal, that like side of your brain that just starts to shut off, like when your subconscious is kind of more taking the helm, like that to me is like the sweet spot of where, things actually get solved.
But I feel like you're kind of masochistic.
I'm sure.
With your songwriting.
I agree. It's not the most pleasurable experience.
But it is effective.
Yeah.
So two comments to that. One, I mean, when I was a professor, I always told my students that if you think your writing process only takes place when pen is put to paper, you're going to fail. But your writing process is taking place as you're eating, sleeping, working out, walking. You're not even, like you were saying, it's happening when you're not even thinking about it. And I think you have to take that tack rather than it only happens when I'm actually writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we both, I mean, it's just swimming around in our heads all hours of the day until, all the final pieces are put together.
I think our biggest problem is we're so good at letting writing like percolate in the background at all times that we literally can't turn it off. And we become like, I mean, I don't want to say excessive, but we start drinking a bit much during an album set because it gets to a point where the only way to turn it off is to get lightly inebriated.
Absolutely. No, there's nothing to like indicate that the day's over. So that's
or to make your brain just stop trying to write.
And I'm sure this is why, most artists deal with addiction.
I know. Yeah.
Wait, so if I heard you correctly, the drinking starts to kind of stop the flow of ideas. I feel like that's the Bizarro world.
No, we're not like that band that like drinks while we're in the studio. It's the exact opposite. We're like drinking to shut our brain. We're just being like, okay, the day's over. We're having our like sundowner cocktail and like the day is officially over.
Drinking makes me tired and stupid.
Exactly.
I've never had a good idea after one drink ever. Same with Pat.
Yeah.
We're just like, goodbye world. Here's the drink. Like, it's like an escape hatch.
So I have a quote that Pat, something that you said reminds me of, and that is I interviewed the writer Anthony Doerr, All the Light We Cannot See, the book.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and this is like, by the way, he told me a great story. He said, talk about rituals. He said that when he first started writing, he was in New York and lived in like a second-story walk-up, and he had to put on this construction-grade ear protection to block out the noise. But then, I don't know, years later, and he still lives there now. He lives in Boise, Idaho, where out in the woods with his family, no sounds at all, but he still has to wear that ear protection as part of his ritual and he doesn't realize he's wearing it until he goes to the bathroom and sees himself in the mirror. But he's like, I don't have to wear it, but I can't take it off now because it is such a part of my ritual.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, but okay, but here's what I said. I asked him about writer's block, and he goes, "I don't believe in writer's block." He said, "I call it a failure of courage." And that you can't be afraid to write the bad stuff. And I think, Pat, that's what you were saying. It's like, if you think it's too, like, you're not that, no one's that special. Let's just write it. Like, don't, and his whole thing was like, you just can't be afraid. And when you said that, that kind of reminded me of that, right? I think you have to take that tack as a writer.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, Elaine and I are both just trying to, this is this completely selfish endeavor. Like, we're writing music so that when we play it back at the end of the day, we're like stoked at what we're listening to, and we're trying to make something that we wish existed. So, to get that done, it's like it does take hours and hours of work, like to achieve that, sort of reaction from ourselves, and it's like it's got to happen that way. Otherwise, we're going to be there's a level of like phoning it in that would be happening, which, I mean, it's a whole side conversation, but I think, when we were signed to labels, we maybe would phone it in a little bit more and like only write when we were inspired because, we were just chasing an album advance or something. We're like, oh, this is one more song done and we're that much closer to getting our advance and we're broke as hell right now or whatever. But now that like we self-release and this is truly like, something that we have a vested interest in. Yeah, it's just, it takes time. And
I don't even tie anything to it financially. I see it as like our legacy.
Now I think that's what happened. It crossed into that territory, and now that's where we're at.
Back to the anecdote, I agree that writer's block is a failure of courage, and I am willing to admit that I can't sit with that. I can't sit with a bad idea. I actually feel physically ill when we've spent a whole day in the studio and everything we recorded is bad. I feel like sick. I'm like, I need...
Yeah.
And we have to keep going in every day until we cancel that out with a good idea. And it's really difficult for me. It's hard to even face it.
Yeah. It's, definitely the highs are high and the lows are low, as with everything with music.
So, Elena, all those ideas, and you and I may have talked about this before, but the voice memos, and I had Magdalena Bay on, I think within like the past 6 months, and they're amazing. And I think she told me she looked at her phone, there were over 2,000 voice memos on there, with no organization whatsoever. So, yeah, is there any sense of organization to them on your phone?
Not at all. Same though. I just tons and tons of voice memos. I try to label them in some way can sort of give me a clue as to what I was thinking of when I came up with it, but no, I think it's just chaos.
Once we go through them though, like there'll be a day when we just go through like, the 100 that are in there or whatever. And we'll be like, oh, that would be cool for this song, or that would be cool. And then we'll relabel them then. We'll just, this will be great idea for 12 Blown Tires, great idea for Through the Mirror or whatever. And just see if we can use it to punch up another part in the song.
I do love hearing the titles that songwriters give those voice memos. I've heard titles. There are emojis. There are various stars they give them, all these different things. But I think the value of not labeling them, and I know for me, like I go back through old stuff, and I probably would have skipped over it if it had a label, but I didn't. And it's like, oh, actually, that has legs that I didn't think it had before.
Most of our titles, or at least like working titles around this album, were like how high school. We used this like adjective. We used high school in the adjective, like as an adjective, and it would be like how high school something is. Because we were just like trying to find like that loose form of ourselves where it was like, not thinking. A
bit more liberated, bit more confident.
Willing to make a mistake or two.
All right, so I've got some quotes up here I want to get your take on. So I had Christian Lee Hudson, the songwriter, on within the past month or two. And I wrote this down because I thought it was so cool what he said. He said, "My biggest hurdle as a writer is trying to hack my brain to become less critical." And there's always that struggle he talks about of, as he's writing, just not being critical of things as he writes. And I've heard other songwriters say that just getting the hell out of your own way. And he finds that to be a big challenge. So I guess, both of you, I'd love to hear about that idea.
That's our high school. I mean, that's ultimately, I think the reason we use that term so much on this record is because we were trying to find a version that is not so like
unself-critical.
Yeah, just like kind of that idiot brain that you just want to like let loose and have like the raw form, the raw expression come out.
Yeah, we're actually in the middle of mixing. Pat found a really old hard drive that had our very first demos from 2009, the first things we ever wrote and recorded.
Yeah, I remember doing it because we sold our 4-track cassette player, like our Tascam, like maybe 8 years ago or something. And I was like, oh, I was going to throw out all the tapes too, since we had already released some of the stuff. And I was like, I should just digitize these and like
save them.
Save them. And yeah, we opened them back up and they're like,
and
they're so weird.
I know, but it was so charming because now looking at it literally like almost 15 years later, we had like, it felt so endearing. So we're actually working on re-releasing it because they're 4-track demos that have never seen the light of day. And they're actually so good and charming, and they're flawed. There's bad, they're demos. So
they sound insane.
Yeah. They sound insane, unpolished performances. Some of my lyrics are frankly very cringy, but it's really sweet. And 22-year-old Elena really meant it. And it's kind of cute to me. So yeah, I think that I think was the last time that we had hacked our critical brain. Because the very first time we ever wrote anything, it was with absolutely no expectations.
There's no intention at all.
It was just pure joy. And I hear pure joy. It's like almost like caveman music, just like dumb and happy. And it's really charming.
Yeah. You'll hear it.
Yeah, you'll hear it. We're gonna release it. We're gonna. I think we just finished mixing it today. Actually, yeah.
So, is it a struggle then? That's not a struggle anymore? I mean, do you feel that is it difficult sometimes still just kind of let things go?
I can't let anything go, and I can't ever stop criticizing myself.
Yeah, I think we just come to find that like through a way roundabout way. That's like a lot harder to achieve.
The closest I can get to it is if we record a demo, don't listen to it for a couple of weeks until I've kind of forgotten it, and then I can hear it somewhat objectively because I'm not anticipating everything that's happening. I can just sort of hear it fresh, and then I can be like, okay, that actually holds up.
Yeah.
That's kind of the only way I can get around that.
And then I think we're very, very, very critical when we're listening back to something. And if something's not moving us, then we're usually we'll flag it and figure out a way to fix it. Cause ultimately we're just like, we're truly listening just to experience pleasure while we're listening, So if there's a moment during a song where we're not experiencing pleasure, like I feel like we're good at noticing that.
Or you always say, do I believe it?
That too.
Did I believe that? Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned you kind of set things aside, but is that a standard part? I certainly do that as a prose writer.
Yeah, I'd
say yeah. When Mark and I were writing the book, and I was looking over the chapters, I had a rule of I would never look at anything more than twice a day, but I would do it once in the morning, once in the evening, because I needed that distance. So, and that was very specific. I would not go 3 times. I would only do it twice because if I looked at it too quickly, it was still fresh in my mind. So how much distance do you typically give things?
I mean, it's different for every song. Like sometimes we'll finish a song and we're like 100% certain, like this rules. Like we're so stoked about this. And we'll actually just at that stage want to go get it like, final mix and master because we're just, it excites us to like have something, that's to the finish line. But then other songs that were like, okay, that did pass the test. Like I listened to it from start to finish and I felt something for the entirety of it. But I still feel like maybe there's a 5%, some 5% somewhere that's on the table that we need to figure out. And those songs will just give as much time as possible. Like if it's, our deadline's in September, we'll probably wait until August 31st before we say it's
Sometimes
done.
That final 5% is actually really hard to get. We have that happen a lot where the song will be so close and that final little step takes weeks to finish for some reason.
Yeah, and unfortunately for this record, this is the most B-side ridden record we've ever had. Like there are more B-side, more thrown out songs than there are finished
album
songs.
Tracks, yeah.
And all of those thrown out songs, believe it or not, they're all at like 95%. It's like
and they're
it's
all
quite
really
sad.
cool too.
But we couldn't figure out that remaining 5%. And again, if we were on a deal that required like us to put them on a record, we needed a 35-minute album to get our record advance or whatever, they would just be on the record. But like, because we're not, like, we're just deciding not to release them because they're not truly making us happy.
Yeah.
But how would you know to stop? I mean, it sounds like there was a point at which you just said, yeah, like we can't do this anymore.
The deadline arrived,
Okay.
and just for whatever reason, there are about 10 other songs that just never could get to the finish line. And we normally have a lot of songs going at once, and we kind of cycle through them every day. We spend a few hours on a song until it stops being fruitful, and then we switch to the next one and just rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
But there are just a lot that we gave up on.
I do absolutely, as a writer. That's so funny you say that, because I do the same thing. It's I will work on something and then set it aside, and when I come back to it, it's always fresher than if I'd continued to work on it for an extended period of time. It reminds me, I had Mary Timony on about a year ago, and I just let certain things some songwriters say to me that I'll never forget. She said her routine is she writes something in the morning, sets it aside, looks at it 12 hours later, because 12 hours later, she's a new person. She's a different person. And she's had some experiences during the day. It could be just going to the grocery store where, okay, I am not the Mary Timony I was 12 hours ago, and I can look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so insightful, because I think we instinctively feel that way too, to the point where sometimes we'll hear a song back that we were so excited about, a demo that we were so excited about, and then by the end of the day we hear it again and we're like, what did we see in that?
Yeah, or I think
sucks.
There's also another version that occasionally we'll have a friend over and we'll play some like demos for them, and that is, for whatever reason, playing them with another, like a stranger who hasn't been in the room, and there's no context. Obviously they know it's a demo, but like beyond that, they're hearing it with fresh ears. Like, it is wild to see the difference in, like, even our opinion of it, just having another person in the room, like whether or not I feel like ashamed of a part or something, or like, or if I'm still proud, like while I'm listening back with that other person there, I feel like, oh yeah, I stand behind this. This is sick.
You're right. That's actually a really critical step.
Yeah.
I know I've talked about this with you before, Lena, but when it comes to lyrics, writing down, are you a pen and paper person or a computer person?
In the very first stage, where it's very abstract, I like to do pen and paper, usually journaling or whatever. But then once I get a song up and running, I switch to the laptop I will have like 20 separate Word documents for the same song. So I can be switching back and forth between different formulations.
Yeah, it's like
of
version 1, version 2, version 3.
Yeah, of like moving chunks of lyrics around for flow. Or changing one or two single words out of a chorus.
Well, and then the other reason you have to do that too is because we are like rearranging songs like just lunatics. Like, one day the bridge will become the chorus, another day the chorus becomes the verse, and another day we rewrote the chorus and now we deleted the other half of the song. I don't know. It's just like we are we're so scrappy in the studio.
But I think that is a more common experience than we used to know, because I read the George Saunders A Swim in a Pond in the Rain, and I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but you know what he says to his students is, your voice emerges out of the 100,000 teeny tiny decisions that you make. That's where your identity comes forward, and your tone out of your writing. It's not one masterful decision like, it's comedic with a touch of satire. You know what? It's not that. It's actually in those little teeny tiny revisions, those little forks in the road. And I think that's what you're talking about, where as the song keeps going, we have these little forks in the road, and one little decision unravels the previous decision. And we keep circling back, and the song keeps swirling around until I have 20 different versions of the lyrics. And that's how it works.
So when you're, I want to ask you a follow up to that, Elena, with the pen and paper on that initial stage.
Yeah.
If you're writing something that you don't like, do you cross out with a single line, or do you frantically scribble out so that you can never see that thing again?
It depends on how much I dislike what I wrote. I'll cross it out if it's just not working, but if I later hate it, I'll scribble it out.
You'd be surprised. The answers I get are, I just had someone on recently, I forgot who it was, who said they don't cross out anything. They keep on writing and they just go back and circle the things that they like. So there's no racing going on whatsoever.
That's more positive.
Right. Yeah.
I rarely do a full scribble out. It's only if I'm actually like, ew, why did I say that? Where I will occasionally be ashamed of my own diary, and I'll go in and scribble something out.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. Is the whole point of a diary like just uninhibited and not crossing anything out, right?
Well, that's why I wrote it the first place. In the first place, I was uninhibited, and then later I was back to being inhibited again.
But I think this is the side of music that is really hard because, like, lyrically, like, I feel like you are tapping into your life for, identity statements, and your journal does blend over into the lyrics. So, yeah, there's maybe that's the practice part of it.
Yeah, it does because some people journal and they deliberately will never use the journal at all as songwriting. Like they make that completely separate because they need to get that out, and there's no crossover whatsoever.
I have a separate notebook for lyrics. I don't like to have it in my like journal because then it just gets it's not good for organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I will say, like, to frame real quick though, that you don't write diaristic songs for the most part.
No, not normally. Yeah.
It is there, like, it maybe when we first started out, but like now it's more, maybe you're tapping into something that's like, a statement maybe, or something that affected you a certain day that made you think of something that can be used for lyrics.
All right, so I have a David Byrne quote up here. A car is a good place to write lyrics. Driving occupies one part of the brain, freeing up the other. And Agatha Christie famously said that the best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes. And Pat, you had mentioned, the subconscious. Yeah. And there was an article in the Washington Post within the past year about why we get our best ideas in the shower. And that when the brain is engaged, and Elena, you mentioned, I think, folding laundry, like literally all of those things, and that the ideas come to us when our brains are engaged in monotonous activities that require no thought.
Yeah.
So how often does that happen? And are there specific activities that tend to be more fruitful for you?
Yeah, I mean, some people might not know this, but for when we are writing an album, I do spend the most time just playing drums out of probably anything else. And it's always like the search, like the white whale for me is just a drum part that is on face value feels normal and intuitive, but like on paper is actually just like unique and special or something, there's something remarkable about it. But like the common ear wouldn't notice that it's different. So I'm always looking for that. And it's like, so I'll play drums for, hours and hours until I find something that's like, there's this weird subdivision with the hi-hats and the snare or whatever that's giving this like a special feeling. And then, once I have that, but luckily drums it's such a, it's back to that like caveman thing that we've been talking about. It's such a dumb thing to be doing. You're just banging on these tubs. So yeah, I mean, I think your brain's inherently shut off while you're doing it, unless you're, doing like prog drumming or something like that, where you're counting subdivisions and whatnot. But I don't do that. I'm not that good. But anyways, when I do find that drum beat, I'll quickly record it, and usually that will, spawn other ideas just with bass or guitar or something.
I actually haven't asked Patrick this question though, that you just, because for me, and I have great ideas come to me while I'm folding laundry, riding my bike, in the shower, doing yoga. Because especially if it's yoga, where as long as someone's giving me the commands, I don't have to think while I'm doing it. But do you have an activity?
I mean, I
like
don't,
that?
because I don't.
You play tennis,
But also,
you
I don't.
skateboard.
Yeah, I don't carry a phone with me ever, so that's also maybe a reason why this doesn't enter. Because I can't. I don't. There's no way to do like the voice memo thing. Because I just.
I don't usually. I've had ideas. Like I had the idea for
I
a
forget them
bridge.
so quick. My ideas are, when they do come to me, they're gonna stay for like about 2 minutes, and if I'm not somewhere to record them, like they do disappear quickly.
I have to sing it over and over in my head.
So, but I can't sing. So this is the problem. This is I don't. Elena's. Let's just go ahead and say it. You got perfect pitch.
Oh.
But I don't. So if I do even sing it in my head, I start mismatching like firsts and harmonic thirds and fifths or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like, it's just not. I have to grab a guitar or something where I can intuit a melody, but I can't sing. So if like I open my mouth, the melody will actually disappear.
But Pat, you've never had those moments like when you're doing something, like Elena says, when you're doing something that's not related to music at all.
I do, and I guess there's not a consistency there. There's not like an activity that spawns melodic information for me. But yeah, it is. I mean, it's a constant struggle for me to, like, if I do hear something in my head, how do I get it out without a guitar? That has been like the biggest quandary of my life.
I've actually spent most of our marriage
Deciphering.
trying to learn how to decipher, because he truly can't sing. When it comes out, it's like, na, 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 na,
well, now I've just been saying,
I'm
like,
what?
Now I've just been
know
saying
his idea is good.
Intervals now. I'll just be like, okay, so it's this, and then you'll go a step up, and then you'll go 2 steps up, and then you'll go half a step down, and then that's been more effective randomly.
And I try to interpret it like because he'll sing it, it's like not in the key of the song or whatever, and I try to like decipher the melody and then put it into the key, and sometimes I've gotten it.
Yeah.
A couple of times I get it, but most of the time we lose it, and I feel so bad for you because I can see you losing an idea that you really
so
liked.
Sad.
I know.
I know.
So Elena, do you put yourself in those positions specifically? Like, I'm going to go for a walk, or then it's going to happen?
Yes, it doesn't always work, but doing something consistently every day, and I mix it up. So one is some kind of house chore, like laundry, dishes, something. Honestly, one of my favorite chores to do where I get good ideas is actually scrubbing the skirting board of the, between the wall and the floor, like dusting that. I get ideas from that.
Our house is very clean.
It gets
if you
very,
haven't figured
very
this
clean
out.
when we're making an album. I just deep clean the stove or something and just like try and solve something. And then at some other point in the day, I do something physical. A walk, a run, a bike ride, yoga, something.
Whereas me, I guess me, it's just noodling. Like I've just got to be noodling.
I don't do that. I don't just sit at the piano and just let my hands like move independently of my brain. I can't do that.
Yeah, in this way, I weirdly think I would be such a good like session guitar player because I'm so used to doing this. Just like
yeah, you're right.
Letting random stuff flow through.
Well, maybe you can get into that when we go on our
no one can
definite hiatus. Oh, maybe they can.
So I love that. By the way, I think those are called it's not baseboard. Is it baseboard's the thing at the bottom?
Yeah, baseboard, or I think I call it skirting board.
Yeah. So I can see that though, the monotony, the repetition, the movement, right? But okay, so I do the same thing, but no, I don't do that. But I talk to a lot of songwriters, and I do the same thing. It's when I should be writing, like I go and I clean. Unfortunately, I see that as procrastination, and I think most people do. It's I should be doing this, but I don't want to. If it's not procrastinating, if I'm doing something productive, and I hear that all the time. The studio has to be perfect, or I'll go clean my room. But you actually, and again, I think for there, it's like I don't want to sound lazy, so I'll, do something that, makes things look better. But you're actually doing it, and you're getting ideas while you're doing it.
I do. I mean, because if I feel like I get to a point where I'm stuck, like I usually wake up first thing and just immediately start writing lyrics because my brain is like firing on all cylinders the second I wake up, and that is my most creative moment of the day. And usually within a few hours, it just starts to dwindle. And then that's when I switch gears to I clean something or I do some physical exercise. But I will usually set a timer or give myself a mental note, like I can't do this for more than 30 minutes or an hour. And then I have to go back to actual writing. Otherwise, I can start, it turns into procrastinating at that point.
And Pat, do you get ideas, external ideas? Like I hear some songwriters tell me that a noise that they'll hear something. I've heard things like car alarms, turn signals can be.
I don't, my brain doesn't work like that, but I do, for me, if I'm out and about in the world, it's the ideas that come are more macro. They're like, oh, I've got a song idea. And it's more of like a palette for like a song. And it ends up being very, very important. Like if I even just coming up with like, a song that has like this, type of chord configuration with this bass line or whatever, I'll remember that song idea and then I'll come home and at least try and achieve it or some version of it. And that's always really important for me. It's just like palette ideas.
I do have something similar to what you were saying, but it's not from sounds or noises, but it's when I'm out in the world and I hear music in the background, music that I would normally never listen to, especially weirdly yoga, because music for yoga, it's deliberately background music. And it's not music I would ever listen to. It's usually stuff I've never heard in my life. Usually it's just like completely generic chords or something. But often while I'm listening in that weird, distracted way, I will hear different melodies than the one that artist chose over the same context. And sometimes I will actually get really good ideas from that because it's not their song. It's just hearing what they chose on that song made me think of a completely different decision that I would have made. And then I'm like, that's actually good. And then I would delete all those chords. And now I have a completely fresh idea. But I actually do that a lot.
So related to that, I had on Martin Sexton a couple of years ago, the guitarist, and I'd never heard this before. This blew my mind. So what he does is he puts a speaker on either side of him, but each speaker is playing something totally different. So it'll be like classical and rap or country and talk radio, like two completely different things, completely different genres.
For the headaches?
What's that?
What does he take for the headaches?
I don't know, but he said the chaos of it, hearing those things gives him ideas. I thought that was crazy, but it has to be something two totally different types of music.
That makes sense because your brain is looking for patterns and trying to make sense out of this chaotic, like mishmash of
like a bad music festival. That's what that should be called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have the dueling stages, and you just like hear both shows at once, and you're just like, "Ow!"
Yeah,
that's so cool.
I know. I don't know where he got that from, but what a cool idea! And like I said, it can be talk radio and like metal. Doesn't even have to be necessarily music.
Yeah.
Wow.
We both. So maybe we've talked about this side like at one of our shows or something, but like I cannot listen to any music at all when we're making our own stuff. Like, and it actually creates a void in me too, where I'm just like, oh, I wish I could listen to, my favorite album or something. But it's for the whole entire year, I literally won't listen to anything.
I mean, you're right. We don't, but it's not complete. We do listen to some music, but we just have a rule that it has to be music from a really long time ago.
Yeah, kind of.
Like
I don't really.
They need to be dead. It needs to be like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, for the most part, we definitely have a rule that we don't listen to anything new
or anything that we want to listen to. Let's go and say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't want to be influenced by it or channel it unintentionally.
All right, before I get to my last question, we're going to talk reading, of course, but I've got one more quote. This is the favorite quote of songwriters, and this is by the novelist E.L. Doctorow. And he says, writing is like driving at night in the fog. You can only see as far as the headlights, but you can make the whole trip that way.
That's nice.
Wow.
And I think that is mostly true for us. But I think we do, like, there are those magic moments where we do get the whole song, the impression of the entire song. at the first time we write something, like whatever, the
Oh,
guitar
really?
part or the vocal part or whatever. And it's like, oh, the whole song presents itself to us, and we'll record it so quickly. Like it'll happen in like 2 days or something like that. But yeah, beyond that, we're searching for the finish line, but it's always out of sight.
Absolutely.
That's, as a prose writer, I always feel like I have no right knowing what I'm supposed to say, because if I think that I know how it's supposed to end, that won't allow me to make detours and to kind of make turns I wouldn't make. And I think, I have no right knowing what it's supposed to look like when I start. And I've always taken that attitude, and that allows me to kind of explore new things.
Yeah, and some of the detours ends up being more important than the original work. Like for us,
all the time,
we've had a few, like song will be 95% done or something. We're like, oh, it just needs a bridge. And then we'll go write the bridge, and then the bridge ends up being better than anything else in the song.
And now the bridge is the chorus, and now the chorus is thrown in the trash.
Exactly. And that happened a lot on this record.
All right. Now, Lena, you and I text all the time, books. So, it's a constant that I've read books that you recommended, and hopefully I've given a couple of recommendations. So,
yeah.
What did I've tried to think. Actually, I'm reading the Mike Campbell memoir right now.
Okay.
And I just finished reading the amazing new book about REM by Peter Ames Carlin, which was incredible because it's just a really cool kind of history of the band. But anyway, let's have at it.
Yeah.
What are you reading?
Yeah. Here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my journal because I have a list of every book we've read this year. Here, you can start answering, Pat, while I grab this.
Okay, Pat.
I just finished Kazuo Ishiguro. Is that how you say his name?
I think so, yeah.
What's it called, Elena? Remains of the Day.
Oh, yeah.
I just finished that, and obviously that book's been out for a long time. And I have no interest in the book's about a butler, living through the transition of or I guess like the fall of the Renaissance era in Great Britain. But yeah, it's so fascinating. I loved it so much, and I honestly it related to being like a musician in a weird way. I don't know.
How did you pick that book?
I found it.
Yeah, you found it.
I found it on a Reddit thread, weirdly, like a literature Reddit thread, and some random comment, a guy was like, I never thought that my favorite book would be about a butler reminiscing about butlering or buttling or whatever.
But I also had just read his other book that just came out called Clara and the Sun. And I think he wrote it it's his last book, and I think he's probably in his 80s right now, would be my guess.
Yeah.
And I felt like I just needed to like have another version of, I wanted to read him also in his like quote unquote prime, just before I like made a decision about him as an author.
So, Pat, one follow-up quickly, and that is, once I decided, I used to be the kind of person that would always have to finish a book no matter how bad it was.
Yeah.
And I realized I was wasting a lot of time with my life doing that. So
I'm going to throw it out. Like,
are you? So
yeah, someone's got to have quality control. And if the author doesn't have it.
But when do you know? I had someone tell me 75 pages. It's got to be 75. Yeah. So
it's different.
Mine is 100.
I think mine's around 100 too. Like I'll push through because there's been a few like Russian books I feel like that really, unfortunately,
or like any Victorian
novel,
they
just have that setup period that's required, and it's time consuming.
Honestly, David Foster Wallace hooks you with a good first chapter and then
kind of leaves you
antagonistically leaves you out for another
throws you in the gutter
pages until you really get going again.
Yeah.
I just read. I'm sure we talked about this, but I read Creation Lake.
Yeah.
Rachel Kushner, I think. I loved that.
Yeah,
Pat
we
read
love
that
her.
too. That was a really pleasant surprise for me.
Yeah.
And then honestly, I normally don't say anything that I don't like, but I liked parts of it, but I thought I would love Orbital, Samantha Harvey.
I just read about that. I haven't. I was going to buy that. I have not read it, but I just read something about it recently.
I actually really want you to read it because I am, or at least 75 pages of it, and then compare notes because I just wanted to like it. Like as a concept, it was like my favorite idea ever. And obviously, I want to write a lot about our experiences sailing, and the idea of writing about a crew on a space station. It's so similar. I mean, it's the language and the daily minutia of crew on board is really similar in a lot of ways. It's not outer space, but
your life depending on the vessel.
Yeah, like just even the concept of like when you're at sea, it's like a half an inch of fiberglass separates you from like total annihilation. And it's such a similar experience, being in a space station. It's like whatever, a quarter inch of like sheet metal or whatever the hell it's made out of. But for some reason, I feel like it just didn't go anywhere. It like set up an amazing...
Did you finish it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I forced myself to finish it, and I almost like angrily finished it because I was like, prove me wrong. Yeah. But I don't know. But I'd like to talk with you about that one.
Yeah.
Around to
and
it.
then we both read, neither of us had read the Jennifer Egan books before.
Which was a
you
recommendation from
that.
you. Yeah.
And I loved it. Like, it was incredible. And obviously, like,
we read them both in like a week and a half.
But I love stuff that criticizes the music industry, and there's a lot of that in there.
What was the most recent one?
The Candy House.
Yeah. She's the kind of writer, honest, that I liked that, I think, more just because it was, the whole concept was absolutely mind-blowing. It's like, how in the hell do you even write something like this?
She's a genius.
Yeah, she is a genius.
She's actually a genius.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I think I told you this, but I had posted something about the book, and I tagged her, and she responded, and it was like, oh my God, because I said, I said, which one should you read first? Because the one that just came out is the prequel, right? Yeah, and I think that's when she said you should read first. But that was the kind of book where I put it down and I go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, what did I just read? It was just mind-blowing.
Yeah. It felt like a more like well-spoken Pynchon novel or something like that.
And from what I understand, she had no experience in the music industry. So that was all done on research. It was a totally new topic to her.
Wow. Yeah, it was so immersive, and I felt changed by the stories and by the characters. Obviously the lasting impact of a novel is always what you're seeking after. And another few that we read, because we read some really good books this year, we were both really impacted by, we both read Wellness and The Nyx. And
we tried it. This was our year to like read new. We usually read old stuff, but we were feeling like we needed to like see what new literature had going for it. So.
We read some old stuff too, because we talked about Homo Faber, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that book blew me away.
Yeah,
and that's too. Yeah, I mean, that was written in the 50s. That was incredible. Yeah, we did a lot of really good. Oh, I read Clarice Lispector this year for the first time, Near to the Wild
Loved
Heart.
It.
Yeah. You read The Hour of the Star. We both read different books of hers.
Yeah.
Are you reading books at the same book at the same time ever, or no?
Like a book club, kind of. We both try and read them consecutively as quickly as possible so that we can...
It sucks because we can't talk about it at the same time, but we read it staggered. So
but for a few books, we've gotten 2 copies of them and just committed to reading them at the same time.
So real quick follow-up, last question, and that is, do you I think now that some television writing is as good as some of the best book writing now. I mean, it never used to be that way. I don't know if you've watched Reservation Dogs.
No, we haven't seen that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard about that, but
I've heard of it.
It's so good. I don't even know how to even begin. It's so good, and I think and I think now it's like you can watch some television and feel like, wow, this really rivals some of the best writing and some of the best novel writing now. I mean, not the best, but it's fantastic.
I love you saying that to Patrick, because he still has this like TV rots your brain mentality.
I do, yeah. And it's hard for me to enjoy. I think
it used to.
Yeah, it used to. I think you're right. But
okay, I love. Please continue to make this argument for Pat.
Yeah. So there was an article in like the past 5 years in the New Yorker about the death of the English major. These how and what are they going to do? And I wish I could remember the guy's name, but they interviewed, at the end of the article, they interviewed like the most preeminent literary theorist alive about television, about the writing on television. And you're expecting, this guy's like in his 80s, and I forgot who it was, but you're expecting him just to be like, it rots the brain. And he was the exact opposite. I mean, this was a guy who's in his 80s, and he was like, the writing on television is some of the best writing out today.
That's so
That's
cool.
good to hear. I mean, yeah, obviously the good shows that have come out over the past few years are like, they're truly exceptional and better than
We love Righteous
most
Gemstones.
we really do.
That's like one of our favorite shows on television.
Yeah. That and like, I'm trying to think what else there. We loved Baskets. Baskets was really, really incredible. These like dark comedies that we really resonate with.
Mm-hmm.
I think it used to rot the brain when there were 3 networks. And there's just, it was that vapid stuff where you're just, it's where you feel like you're just watching something and you're not engaging at all, passively taking it in. But
yeah, you're right. There was no stakes. You could just get away with making whatever show you wanted because people had to watch it because
right.
Their choice.
Yeah. And now some of that writing is just fantastic. So that's my pitch for Reservation Dogs. I don't know anyone involved, but it's so good.
Cool.
Amazing. Well, we'll definitely check it out.
And that's it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, you can find all the episodes on all major streaming platforms and also at the Songwriters on Process website. That is at songwritersonpodcast.com. Pre-2020, this was not a pod. I was transcribing all of the interviews. So you can find all of them, hundreds of them, many hundreds of them, on the Songwriters on Process website. You'll find both the transcribed interviews and the pod there. Take a deep dive, spend a day. These are great conversations with songwriters just about the writing process. Also, my book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, is out now worldwide on Hachette Books. You can find it online in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God, and it's his memoir. Again, that is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari. I am biased, but that's a damn good book. My email, ben@songwritersonprocess.com. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love suggestions, questions, comments. People always email me and tell me who they want to see on the pod next. You never know. Send me an email, ben@songwritersonprocess.com. That's it for me, everyone. Have a great day.